Hey everybody, and welcome back to Dude's Brunch. It's a podcast about pop culture, internet garbage, and black coffee. I'm your host, Taylor Olmstead, and with me, it's Tyler Reed. Tyler, what did you have for brunch today?
Hey everyone! Today for brunch, two things. Number one, I've decided that I will no longer be getting takeout brunch because I decided that it's not brunch.
Good plan.
It ceases to be brunch if you are forced to eat it quickly out of a not tinfoil. What's the word? Styrofoam container. That being said, I didn't have my Geta sandwich today. I had a cheeseburger, I had bacon, had egg, had like a pesto sauce. I had to drizzle on myself because of course we're getting it to go. Had some fancy cheese on it, and so with some potatoes. It was fine. I wish it was prepared hot and fresh and I could eat it as soon as it was done because it probably would have tasted better and would have taken more time.
You lost me at pesto. Sean Evans is here. Sean, please tell me you had something more sensible for brunch.
I had one of them Jimmy Dean breakfast sandwiches.
I love the continuing theme that whenever you eat one of these, you put on a horrible Southern accent. It's fantastic.
You gotta have an accent if you're gonna have a Jimmy Dean breakfast sandwich. Just put some sunshine in your morning, Taylor.
Oh God, he's a Southern lawyer now.
The croissant one with the sausage again?
No, this one is the toaster crumpet with egg white, American cheese for some reason, and sausage, and then.
Now hold on. Now that's okay. You can have American sometimes.
It's just the most generic of cheeses.
I should have put like pepper jack on there or something.
Exactly. Like try a little bit.
It's a microwave sandwich. What do you want from this?
Well, the question I have for you is, now that you've decided that that takeout brunch is not brunch anymore, how long has it been since you've actually had a brunch? Because you've had takeout for the past 2 or 3 months, probably.
Not months, weeks.
So you've been lying to our audience.
Well, I mean, the Indian stuff really doesn't count as brunch.
Indian stuff? What the hell are you talking about?
I did go to Indian food for a couple of weeks.
I mean, I just don't think that Indian food at a lunchtime is brunch. I think you have to have a specific kind of food.
Yeah, it's called lunch.
There you go.
But that's neither here nor there this episode.
Oh, I'm so sorry, everyone. I lied to you. It was a basil chimichurri sauce. Sorry.
That's much better than pesto. I was
much
very
more
concerned.
artisanal.
Pesto chimichurri.
Still not great, but better. Well, I'm your host, Taylor, and for brunch this morning, I made breakfast tacos.
Ooh.
I had some spicy sausage, some scrambled eggs, some peppers and onions, put all that on some corn tortillas. It was delicious.
All right. What is chorizo? Google.
Oh, I got a question for you. Is it like burning down in Atlanta right now because it's so hot? Are you guys in mega death mode right now?
Not yet, but it looks like that's going to come in around July 2nd or 3rd. We're recording this on July 1st, so I imagine tomorrow and the day after are going to be absolutely terrible.
Oh God, dude, it was awful. I went for my run at 9 o'clock this morning, and I got back at 10:30, and I was just beat. I was just toast. That's not even exaggeration. I was just straight toast.
I went for a run on Saturday morning. I left at 10, and it was already 88 degrees. It's going to be a hot one. It's just going to be one of those summers, and we're just going to have to put on our Smooth by Santana featuring Rob Thomas of Matchbox 20 and make it happen.
Although the pools have been fantastic.
I don't really have access to an outdoor pool.
What?
I know. I'm living that city life. But I do have indoor pool at the gym, and it has been great.
Is it hot in Cincinnati?
Apparently, but everyone just fucking wants to just blast the air conditioning, so it's just I don't even know what month it is. We fucking complained about it being cold for 3 months, and then we're oh, it's hot out. I don't want to be hot. What is all this for?
That's just the American way.
It's fine. Apparently, it's been as a heat wave. I don't, like I said, I haven't noticed. I've just been enjoying the summer like I should.
He just wants to soak up the sun and tell everyone to lighten up.
Got him.
Oh, that brings me to something that Taylor posted for us all earlier this week, which is the Smashing Pumpkins Blown Homegrown show.
Yeah, this was a great piece of follow-up. Absolutely loved this. Do you want to explain what happened here, Sean?
Where was it at? Because it was unclear to me.
It was in, I don't remember where it was. I'll try and pull that up while we're talking. But it was wherever they shot the music video for the song 1979. And they decided
You can rent the house? You can rent the house where they shot 1979.
I don't know if they rented it or what the deal was, but they went back to that house and performed a surprise show to kick off their reunion tour, and the neighbors were pissed.
Sarah, we're changing plans for our wedding. We're going to get married in a house where the Smashing Pumpkins recorded 1979. She doesn't look pleased. That's a no. We're not doing that.
Oh.
She just closed the door on me. She wasn't smiling, so I'm in trouble. It's been great. I'll talk to you guys next year. I'm all paid up. So, bye-bye.
It looks like this was in Studio City, California.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a really great news story we'll link to in the show notes where the neighbors talk about how it was so inconvenient that it was so loud and there was traffic and shuttle buses and people everywhere, even though Smashing Pumpkins had filed all the proper permits and alerted the neighbors ahead of time with like written notices on their doors and everything. It's like, I don't know. On the one hand, would I be angry if a concert randomly showed up in the middle of the week in my neighborhood? Probably. But also, they did all the paperwork, so like, who cares?
Paul McCartney shows up in your neighborhood. He's playing like a down the street gig.
I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna be mad. No. That's the thing. I feel like you can be minorly inconvenienced, but you don't need to call the cops. Like, that's an overreaction.
What really upset me more than anything else was the fact that this lady tried to... I think she got in like Smashing Pumpkins jokes the entire like 8 minutes long this story was. And that really upset me.
As in, you wanted there to be more, or you thought they were corny?
It was basic. You could have got in like 150. Come on. Despite all her rage, she was still just trapped in that cage.
Yeah, it was pretty rookie level. I also really wanted like one more shot of Billy Corgan in the package. There was a really great shot of him driving away in his SUV, giving the devil horns gesture to the camera.
And he gave me the rock sign.
Like, that was great. But I just wanted like one more shot of Billy Corgan being Billy Corgan, like out on the street, you know?
And then the other thing was like, well, there goes the bass player for the band. And I was like, well, for the reunion, it would be a woman.
Yeah, they don't actually have her on this tour. It's everyone else.
That just shows the naivete of...
These newscasters, they don't know they're Smashing Pumpkins.
Drum to my dying day. That's what I'm going to have to do, I guess. Jeez. You turn on the radio and it plays your favorite song.
Well, speaking of your favorite song, I don't know if you guys knew this, but somebody was watching Every Breath You Take, but it wasn't me. And that's because Shaggy and Sting are going on a joint tour this summer called the 44-876 tour. Tickets are on sale now. I have no idea what this means. I have no idea what this is going to be. But it's the frontman of the Police and 90s reggae rap one-hit wonder Shaggy co-headlining a mid-size rock venue tour.
All right.
I'm in.
I think
free tickets.
I think this just raises the question of who isn't collaborating these days? Like, I feel like you could just throw darts at a musical dartboard and, like, put together a tour of random artists. And everyone would be like, yeah, I'll totally buy tickets to that.
Did they make an album together?
Oh, I hope so.
Oh my god, it's going to be at the MGM Casino down the road from us.
So what you're saying is, I'm going to go to the show in Atlanta.
They did make an album together, dude. They have a single.
Yes. Check back in with us next week when we review the joint Shaggy and Sting album.
I'm in. All right. Well, we did it. There's our topic.
In other surreal crossover follow-up, listeners to last week's episode will remember our internet garbage, Big Corner by Bank Bank. And it turns out that Bank Bank is more widely known than I expected. I was scrolling through Twitter after we recorded the episode, and Alex Goldman of Reply All tweeted a still from the Bank Bank video that we watched, And I replied and asked if that was what it was from. And we had a back and forth. Turns out he's known Bank Bank for years. And at one point commissioned him to do some cartoons for him. Bank Bank instead sent him a computer virus. And that was the last time they spoke to each other. So I guess what I'm saying is we really are the poor man's Reply All. Also, their podcast is great and you should go listen to it.
Listen, if you're listening to this show, that means you've already listened to all the other big podcasts. You finished WTF.
This thing in Shaggy, it's not bad.
No, don't ruin it. Don't ruin it. We got to talk about it next week.
All right.
Do we have any other follow-up?
Hold on. There's a thing of them doing Wasn't Me together. Oh my god. See, the problem is that Sting actually knows the better than Shaggy. He knows the lyrics better.
Sean's engrossed in the Sting Shaggy verse. All right, folks, this week we're going to do a movie review. All three of us have seen The Incredibles 2, the sequel to the 2004 superhero animated film. And so we're going to be talking about that. I'm just going to warn you now, there will be spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, you may want to come back to this episode after you've seen it, because I just can't imagine a way to talk about this movie without spoiling it. Yeah, it's been out for a while. You should have seen it by now. All right, so Incredibles 2, Disney Pixar, like I said, sequel to the 2004 family animated film. I guess let's start there. So how well did you guys remember the first film? Did you rewatch it in preparation for this one? Kind of what was your exposure to The Incredibles before going into the theater?
I saw the original once in 2004, and then I read the plot line on Wikipedia right before we went. Literally like 10 minutes before we walked out of the door. I reread the plot line, and I was like, oh, all right. I forgot. That's all that happened. Okay, we're good. That's basically all you need to do. I didn't think that you necessarily had to have like an encyclopedic knowledge of everything that went down in order to understand what was happening in the film. Unlike Jurassic World 2, which you actually needed to know about the canonical happenings of Jurassic Park.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Like Sean, I had watched the movie before at some indeterminate time in my past, probably about 14 years ago. And I did not read up on it, but, I feel like it sort of existed sort of like within like, I don't know. It's a movie I feel like people still kind of talk about. So I kind of like, I've always just kind of known generally kind of what happens.
And so did you feel like you were kind of lost?
I was not. No, I had no problems catching back up to where we left off.
Okay.
Yeah, so like you guys, I definitely saw it more than once when it first came out, because I remember really liking it. It's actually one of my favorite Pixar movies, so I know I've seen it probably 3 or 4 times, but I know we didn't own it. It was one of the ones that for some reason we didn't have on DVD, but I hadn't probably seen it in at least 6 or 7 years. I did hear the Incomparables episode about it that came out this spring, kind of in preparation for the new movie, and that kind of jogged my memory on the plot before going into the new one. And like you guys, I don't feel like I was really lost or anything. Like, I think it's helpful to have seen the first one. If anything, though, I was more confused at the beginning of Incredibles 2, because I expected there to have been, like, some time that passed between Incredibles and Incredibles 2. But it seems like it picks up, like, a minute after the first movie ends. Yeah, and that's not what I expected. I assumed the characters would age and, like, things would move on. But it's, like, the same day, which is kind of strange.
I appreciated that. It wouldn't have played if it would have been like, where are they now? Because what's her name? The daughter would have been off at college. Like, come on, it's 14 years. She would have been literally almost our age.
Well, I don't think they needed to, like, go in literal time. But even just a year or two later, I think could have been interesting. I'm glad they did it the way they did, but I expected it to be, like, a year later or 2 years later or something.
Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of the benefit of
of an animated movie, right? Is that you don't have to worry about people getting older or anything happening.
Right.
But really, I actually never really checked, but it seems like all the voice actors are mostly the same.
They are. It's the same core cast.
So they didn't have like any like child like voice actors. So like you didn't have to worry about that. So why not just pick it back up where they left off?
I guess so.
Yeah.
But I feel like the nice thing about that is though, when you watch a sequel that turns, it seems like life kind of goes on for a minute. Sometimes I feel as if you either have to explain something that happened in the off time, or you have all of these you have this really weird temporal thing going on where life continued, but it was basically nothing, like a television show, where it's like, well, what happened in between this week and last week? Well, it wasn't enough to make a television show out of it, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Like it did.
Monica and Chandler maybe actually went to work for once.
Right. Like it didn't seem. The nice thing was it didn't feel like episodic. It felt like a continuation of exactly where it left off before, which was fine. That honestly didn't bother me that much.
So the other thing that I found interesting about kind of the beginning of the movie, it starts with this underminer attack. He's like this mole person who drives around in a big driller tank, and you get to see the whole family work together to try and fight him, and there are some superhero consequences and some secret identity consequences to what goes down. But you could definitely see more of the influence of modern day superhero movies in this first section.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it really shows the difference between The Incredibles in 2004, when we only had the first 3 Spider-Man movies. Actually, I think only the first 2 Spider-Man movies. And now Incredibles 2 in 2018, where we have the MCU and everything DC is doing, and there's superheroes everywhere. Like, the stakes were way higher. There was a lot more like civilian damages, and that becomes like a major plot point in the film, which is interesting because I feel like the first Incredibles kind of played with that idea of like normal people are scared of superheroes, but this movie, like, it is all about that. It is like superheroes as a metaphor for xenophobia and civilian casualties, and like, I don't know, it just really took the superhero movie themes and played with them in a way that was honestly a little bit more heavy-handed than I expected.
It's crazy to think that this movie came out that long ago, and it's interesting to think about a time before superhero movies, because pretty much within our adult lives we've had some part of the cinematic universe going on. That being said, that's kind of what I like about kind of like just as an overall like kind of the flavor of The Incredibles is that it's sort of like a throwback to like the very like the 50s sort of style of like superhero movies, or at least it's kind of like the campy, kind of cheesy, where like a lot of the movies have gotten very serious. They're very like very grounded. So it's kind of interesting to see them kind of like to see how that feels in 2018 when we're dealing with a much more heavy superhero universe.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of nice. I kind of like it. I kind of miss the camp a little bit.
Yeah. Did you guys see Lego Batman last summer?
I did not. Should I have?
Yes, you should have. I feel like this falls in like on the continuum. It's somewhere between a mainline superhero movie and Lego Batman, which is like the campiest camp that ever camped.
I just can't even fathom that it's a movie. Like I
So Will Arnett voices Batman and Michael Cera voices Robin. If that gives you an idea of the direction that it's going.
I mean, that's fine. I'm still you know what? Good for Lego. Because they were having some hard times. They had some hard times. Not anymore.
What did you think of the tone of Incredibles 2, Sean?
I liked it. I thought it was good. Of course, you get the family of superheroes, which is fun. I think that this franchise is easier for me to digest. Like, I honestly, the only superhero movie that I went and even saw this year was this one. Like, I don't go and see like Marvel superhero movies or anything like that.
not on the train of the cinematic universe.
There's too much going on with it, and I don't know. It seems like lowest common denominator a little. I know. Everybody who can't see, which is everybody, Tyler kind of just like pursed his mouth and then did his whole head back jerk turkey thing. And I get that a lot when I say that. Like, I don't have a problem with that. I don't like, it's just me saying like, I never really was in like, I think what turned me all off to this was, is your hand raised?
No, sorry, continue.
Oh, okay. Like, I fell asleep during Fantastic Four.
That's your problem right there.
Because that movie's garbage.
Because all of those movies are terrible.
This is terrible. Like, I watched Doctor Strange and I was like, this is the most like is this the most cerebral of Marvel movies? Like, So but when I see this, I'm like, oh, okay, it's about a family. Like, they all have superpowers. I thought that this one was really interesting because it really focuses hard on the mom as the protagonist, which was really cool. And the antagonist is also a woman. And Mr. Incredible is at home and taking care of the kids. And the scene with Jack and the raccoon was absolutely hilarious. Like, I just didn't expect to laugh as much as I did and have as good of a time as I would for a Pixar movie. I'm just so used to this. We'll have to go talk about Bao Bao after we talk about this. But like, personally, one thing that I really liked about this was, I don't know if you guys noticed, but have you seen Better Call Saul?
Not very much of it.
Okay. There are two characters that play in Better Call Saul that are like, so Bob Odenkirk, who is Saul, and then there's Jonathan Banks, who's Mike, who's like the bodyguard later on, and Private Eye. Okay, he's Bob Odenkirk is Mr. Deaver, right? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then let me see. I just want to make sure I'm getting this right.
Don't you worry, we're waiting for you.
And then Jonathan Banks he's the agent. I forget what his name is on
the FBI agent or whatever in this.
Yeah. Oh, here it is. Rick Dicker. He's Rick Dicker.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I don't know. I thought that was really interesting because in Better Call Saul, Bob Odenkirk's character is kind of this, like, you know, he's kind of like, he's got a heart of gold, but he's like a schemer, and he always gets kind of caught up in these weird situations that are kind of his fault most of the time, but sometimes not. So it was fun to hear his voice playing a character who looks almost just like him in real life as a Pixar person. In the same way with Jonathan Banks, like, Rick Dicker does have a very Jonathan Banks look to him. So when I first heard that, I was like, oh, this is so interesting. This is like so fun. And I thought the whole the plot line with oh crap, I can't remember the name, with Void, Sophia Bush playing Void, like Void's plot line of escaping technology was kind of interesting.
Yeah, so let's kind of dive into the plot, because I feel like we've talked a lot about like the overarching themes of the film, but let's dig in a little bit. So like we said, the film picks up basically the minute that The Incredibles ends, and the family saves the city from this underminer character, but in the process he gets away and gets all the money out of their banks, and the city is very frustrated because superheroes are still illegal, and in their mind The Incredibles didn't actually save anything, they just made the situation worse, which is debatable. And so the family's forced to go into hiding, but an eccentric billionaire wants to help their image. And so he brings them and Frozone in to be his contracted superheroes to pull jobs for him so that he can like improve the image of superheroes. And over the course of this, Helen, who is the mom, otherwise known as Elastigirl, gets put kind of in the spotlight of a lot of these jobs and starts taking on this supervillain called the Screen Slaver, whose whole thing is like, you are a slave to your technology. And so before you kind of get to like the final act and spoiler, the twist, that's kind of like the structure of the movie, is that Helen is out, you know, fighting bad guys while Bob, Mr. Incredible, is at home trying to take care of the children and learn how to be a stay-at-home dad. And like you were saying, Sean, I think it was really interesting to have that role reversal And to like, for a family movie or a children's movie, they lean into it really heavily. And like Bob is really frustrated by it and like clearly bothered that he's being put in this domestic role. And I just thought that was a really ambitious choice for them to deal with it so head on and to do it, you know, for the most part, in a pretty respectful way. There were parts of it that were a little heavy handed, to be honest. I felt like some of the interactions were a little clunky, but on the whole, I thought it was successful.
Interesting side note. Sorry, I got the actress wrong who plays the sister. What's the sister's name?
Violet?
Yeah, who played... No.
Oh, the billionaire's sister.
Yeah.
What is her character's name?
Okay, so anyway, the woman who plays her...
Evelyn Deaver, Catherine Keener, is the actress.
Catherine Keener is the mother in Get Out.
Yes, you're right.
I was like, wait a second, where does that name sound familiar?
And she was, of course, also in Being John Malkovich.
Yeah, she's gotten a lot of nice roles lately.
But like you were saying, Sean, I feel like there was a lot of really fun stuff in the home scenes that allowed for the whole cast to shine in a way that I think the first movie, there was a lot of Mr. Incredible on the island fighting bad guys and like not a lot with the mom and kids, whereas this time around with the role reversal, it was kind of cool to see them doing their domestic lives with their powers. Like, of course, the scene with Jack and the raccoon is the one that everybody's talking about. But I also love like the little interactions between like Dash and Violet at the dinner table, where she like tells him to wash his hands and he like runs at the speed of light to go wash his hands and comes back. Like, just little gags like that are kind of funny.
Right. Like if you had a superpower, you wouldn't just use it for good every day. You would be using it to do everything.
Yeah, you would totally use it to like piss off your older sister, which Flash does incessantly in this.
So
what's kind of funny is that it feels like every preview I saw leading up to this movie was like some sort of like reversal kind of like that, because it was like also had the Lego movie too, where it's like they have lots of jokes that are like about basically how the woman character basically got shafted even though she did all the work. And so I don't know, it's interesting that this is happening like this. We kind of are having this kind of like theme kind of pop up a lot, but it's like it feels so heavy handed, but it feels like we almost have to be like, women are people too. They can also do things. Because, like, you know, like this entire movie, it's like Mr. Incredible is like, you're like, oh man, he's really going over on this. Like, I feel like he's really, like, really reaching. He's being pretty unreasonable about this. But it's like, I think for the movie to drive a point home, he has to kind of be like, you have to hyperbolize it in order to understand. So I don't know. I think I'm just glad that I guess this is a theme that we're addressing. It seems like it's a growing trend in our culture and society that women can do jobs, can make money, can bring home the bread just like men can. So just a fun theme.
Absolutely. While we're talking about these kind of domestic parts, before we get into like the final act of the main plot with Screenslaver, I loved the whole situation with Mr. Incredible accidentally or not so accidentally telling Dicker to wipe the high school kid's mind. And so he completely forgets who Violet is right when they were supposed to go on a date.
right.
Like, there are so many ways that they could have done the dating in high school as a superhero that would have, like, totally not worked. But this, like, Men in Black mind erase thing was so new and different and not a way that I've seen this done before. Like, it didn't feel like a plotline out of Smallville or something like that. Like, it was really funny and interesting, and I liked it.
I mean, I kind of would have seen that date happen personally, but I mean, I think that's fine. I mean, they handle it relatively well. I think it's fine. I kind of wish he had more of a role like in the movie, because he didn't really actually do all that much.
Well, to be fair, he's had his mind erased and doesn't know what's going on, so...
Also, when you're like an 8th grade boy, what kind of role do you have in anything?
I mean, just doing anything at all. But I guess that was...
Yeah, he could barely serve water at the restaurant where he works as a waiter, so...
I guess that he was there to serve as another lesson for Mr. Incredible about empathy. So I guess that's good. I guess that was enough.
But it was also an interesting lesson for Violet, too, to have this kind of, like, pubescent, I don't want to be like my parents, I don't want to have superpowers thing going on. Like, I feel like that was handled well as well with their final scene where they're, like, going to the movie and there's a crime happening and she leaves the boy to go, like, save the people and tells him that she'll be back for him. Like, I felt like that was kind of a nice payoff because it's like, okay, she realizes that, like, this is an important thing for her to do, but also she's still gonna, like, try and have this life outside of it. And I really appreciated that. But let's talk about the main plot with Catherine Keener's character, Evelyn Deaver, and her brother Winston Deaver, played by Bob Odenkirk. So Bob Odenkirk, the billionaire, as we discussed, decides to rehabilitate superheroes, and so he brings on the three heroes that we know to essentially work for him in a weird way. They get paid to do superhero stuff, but it seems like all the work is going to Elastigirl, and so she ends up, like, tracking down this screenslaver person who's brainwashing people. And there's kind of a MacGuffin bait and switch situation where you think it's this guy and she catches him and then realizes that he's not smart enough to have been the screenslaver at all. And it turns out, kind of, I don't know, we'll talk about whether or not this is actually surprising, but it turns out that the screenslaver was Evelyn all along, the billionaire's brother, and that she is frustrated with superheroes and thinks her brother is just being a child about the whole situation. And she wants to expose superheroes as frauds so that they can all be locked up forever.
What? Okay, so but what happened with the parents? I forget. Like,
yeah, so these two, this brother and sister, their dad was also obsessed with superheroes. And he had, like, a hotline in their house to get a hold of some superheroes or something, like a bat phone situation.
Yeah.
And when robbers broke into their house to try and, like, steal all their stuff, he went to the hotline phone and called the superheroes rather than going to the safe room and calling the police. And he and his wife ended up getting shot.
Mm-hmm.
Which
and that caused Evelyn to hold a grudge against superheroes, is because she thought that she kind of placed the blame for her parents' death on superheroes. Did you get that feeling?
Yeah, I think that's what it's going for.
Okay. Because I thought that was like, okay, I get it. And it was kind of surface, but I just want to make sure that I got that message correct.
I don't think they drove that point home very well. It didn't feel earned, to be honest. Like, I think they could have done without that whole parent murder, like, backstory. Like, it just felt unnecessarily dark and a little too Batman-y.
Right. I mean, it's a perfectly plausible excuse that she just doesn't like superheroes because, like, her brother is obsessed with them and their parents are always talking about it or whatever, you know, so it's like, just naturally grew a distaste for them. That's fine.
But I think, okay, so the one thing that they did do that I thought was really nice about the superheroes in general was, so after they go through the first scene with the Underdigger, or was that his name? The Underminer. That how they're in the police station and they're saying, like, what are you doing? They finally confront this whole idea of, like, how superheroes create collateral damage and how that is, like, expensive. And they're like, we don't really need you. That's how we have underwriting. Like, I feel like that's a really subtle joke right there. But I was like, this is funny. This is about the time probably when that was, like, a huge thing. And, like, I just thought it's funny that they came at it from two sides. Not only was, like, superheroes were made obsolete by
insurance.
Well, yeah, insurance, but also because they cause a lot of damage, right? Like, if you really had a Superman, that would be, like, a heavy critique. Would be like, well, I mean, if you blow away half of New York, I mean, what did you save? Did you actually produce, like, a net gain? And how do you measure it? Like, do you measure it based on dollars saved? Do you measure it based on, like, lives saved? What does it come down to at the end?
I mean, this sort of theme is actually popping up pretty reasonably frequently right now in sort of, like, superhero, like, storytelling, because, I mean, that's what the Civil War was about. the Marvel Civil War.
Captain America Civil War, that is.
Yeah. Like, that entire thing was about, like, you cause too much destruction, even though you save lives, whatever. There's also, like, I'm going to say it, and then you're all going to groan, but it's relevant and important. There's an anime called My Hero Academia that's super relevant that everyone's into right now, and they also talk about the idea of, like, what is the value of superheroes? Why do we need them? So it's like, this is kind of like I think after now that we've obsessed over them, we now say, do we really need you? Are you actually good for us?
Which is a theme that comic books have also, like, cycled through multiple times as well. And it's nice to see The Incredibles approach it in a kind of different way. I don't know, like, it's a tried and true theme, but they do it in a way that I think is kind of a new flavor. I don't know. I liked it. I didn't think it was, like, overly original, but I enjoyed it. I will say, though, that the whole twist of, like, you think the villain is just a crazed madman, but then it turns out it's somebody we've known all along. Like, they did that in the first movie with the wannabe sidekick becoming the villain. And now they do that in this one with, like, the technical genius who turns out to be the villain. It's like, okay, I understand, like, economy of characters. It's a children's movie. You need to, like, keep it constrained in such a way that it makes sense to all ages. But I really hope if they do a third one of these that they don't pull that same, like, bait and switch trick, because I'm kind of over it.
And that leads us to a fantastic question. The question that I've talked about more about this movie than any other one, which is, it took 14 years to get this movie, and it seems that they did it right. Do they make another one? And if they do, are you willing to wait 14 years for that?
I mean, I don't think it took 14 years to make this movie, because Pixar made a ton of other movies while this was in production. That being said, I'm totally in support of a third one. And even if it takes 14 years, I will definitely see it. We haven't really talked a whole lot about, like, the stylistic choices of the movie, but the reason that I love The Incredibles so much is kind of what Tyler alluded to. It has this, like, 50s superhero, but also, like, spy movie and also, like, Saul Bass influence to it that I just absolutely love. The kind of, like, mid-century flavor that it has. I enjoy the world that it plays in a lot. The music is incredible. It's done by Michael Giacchino, who has been doing a lot of work recently, but he recently did the Star Wars Rogue One score, which I really enjoyed, and he scored Incredibles 1 as well. And it has this, like I was saying, kind of like a spy movie music feel to it, which I really enjoy. Like, I don't know, there's something about these movies stylistically that, like, I just want to play in this world more, and so I will gladly keep going to see them.
I think that if the intent of the Incredibles movies are to be a sort of amalgamation of the superhero tropes within the time frame that they released the movie in, then I think it is appropriate to do that. And I would say that would be, frankly, refreshing compared to the now onslaught of Star Wars we are now receiving. I'm like, I don't know if I need every year a Star Wars film. That being said, I think that it would be nice, you know, if The Incredibles comes out again in about, you know, maybe even a couple years, just give it some breathing room. Because, I mean, I feel like Pixar usually does it pretty far away anyway. I would say the second point would be that you also see a jump in technology of animation, because from way back when to now, the visual quality, the texturing, there's so many, like, there's such an advancement in animation since then. It's a good benchmark. And if they're there to set a benchmark for that kind of film, I'm also okay with that.
I don't think they should make another one.
Okay.
I that's just me being kind of anti-sequel-y, and I think that they made other movies in between now, like Coco, that were really well done, and it just goes to show that, I don't know, this is a notable exception because it literally starts the minute after the old one ends, so it's basically a continuation of the last movie. It's almost hard to call it a sequel because it's not. It's like a continuation of the same story. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I don't really want to see that, but it was good. Like, if you're going to encourage behavior that you don't like, at least make sure that it's like worthwhile behavior, maybe.
Like the outcome is worthwhile.
Yeah. Like the first time that your kid tells somebody a white lie or something, like you want to tell them like, don't lie. But you also realize as an adult that there's an importance for white lies and being like, oh yeah, Santa wasn't real. You know, like it doesn't, you just start doing that.
Sean, you were really reluctant to talk about this when Tyler and I first pitched the topic to you. Do you feel like the movie exceeded your expectations?
No, because my expectations were really low.
Which is the perfect reason to see a movie when you have nothing to lose.
It's like, I've brought up Jurassic Park on here before because we went and saw Jurassic Park. But I was saying before the show that Jurassic Park as a movie was probably like 4 out of 10. Jurassic World 2. I will never see it again. But in terms of Jurassic Parks, it was probably an 8 out of 10. So if was it a fantastic movie? No, it was not. Was it cool to see at the time? Yeah, it was. Versus other movies in that genre or of that like particular brand, it was good.
You know, I'll give Jurassic Park this. At least they have sick dinosaur fights. Unlike, feels like Godzilla movies that they put out recently, where they just you get 5 minutes. You get 5 minutes of the good giant boy, and then you're done. Jurassic Park says, fuck it, you get the whole movie. The whole movie is dinosaurs fighting.
No, you're right.
But no, I think you bring up an interesting point, Tyler, because I was pleasantly surprised that Incredibles 2 didn't try too hard to be like The Incredibles turned up to 11. You know, like Sean talks about like bad sequels and frustration with the sequelization of movies recently. But compare this to something like the multiple Avengers films, right? Where every movie they add 5 more characters and the stakes get higher and higher and higher. It feels like they added characters and they upped the stakes a little bit for this, but it still felt like an Incredibles movie. There were still like roughly the same number of fight scenes, and they weren't overly elaborate or ridiculous. Like it stayed in its lane.
I haven't seen the Avengers movies, but do they? When I think about this movie, they added other superheroes because superheroes became legal again. It wasn't because they needed superheroes to carry the plot line forward, because they needed to like bank on other franchises to like make it more palatable. Would you say that Avengers is like that? Or would
Kind
am I
of.
just my kind of
And part of it too is that they've been making these movies for so long now that they have to cycle older actors out that don't want to do it anymore, and then bring in new people who are new to the franchise. Whereas, like you were saying, it feels like there was a logical reason to add other heroes in this movie, and they were kind of background characters. Like, yeah, they were fun and interesting, but they're not crucial, and they could not be in the next movie, and it would be totally fine.
I like how this is actually a low-key like a superhero movie discussion, so let's just drag it all out. So what I would say is that for the cinematic universe, I have picked and chosen which movies I've watched. I basically only watched the ones that I've wanted to see. You know, like I like Thor Ragnarok because I looked goofy. You know, Civil War. You know, like Infinity War. You know, like I saw the ones that I felt like I was going to be into. But like you understand the idea of like, what if a bunch of different characters from different universes come together, and you understand how that can be exciting. I'm sure, right? Like you've played Super Smash Brothers, or like seen an episode of a show where like someone from a previous series of that show is like reappears. You know, it's kind of fun and exciting. But it's like, since all these different worlds are so starkly different from each other, it's interesting to see how they play together. Like the Guardians of the Galaxy with like Tony Stark. Basically everyone's a giant fucking douche. And you see how all these people somehow work together to achieve some sort of goal. And it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's the appeal.
Yeah.
But I don't think this movie was ever trying to be that.
Right.
It still wanted to focus in on the nuclear family. And I applaud it for that. I like that it stayed reasonable in its stakes.
But I think that's just an example of sort of Disney and Pixar's sort of methodology, right, is that they understand that these movies take a long time to create, and they're not going to be able to push these out without sacrificing their level of quality or detail. You can say to the level of quality of some of their movies if they were good or bad movies. At the very least, they created a whole world, they played in it, they made a movie about it, and they wrote it, they acted it, all that stuff. It takes a while. So, they're in a much, they have a much longer focus. They're like, this movie has to be good enough to last for 10 years. Whereas, you can get all these superhero guys back together next week. Let's pop out another superhero movie. Let's keep it going. It just makes sense that they think about what is best for the long term. It's a long con instead of a quick kind of money thing. Not to say that the Marvel movies aren't. Just
there are different goals in mind for sure.
Yes.
All right. So final thoughts. But we mentioned that there are a lot of new heroes in this, and of course, there's our core Par family of Incredibles. So let's just do a quick round robin. Favorite superhero in Incredibles 2, or villain, but favorite super powered individual in the new Incredibles.
I got me a big old crush on Elastigirl. That's me.
I knew it.
Catherine. Well, I also tweeted about it literally after the movie was over. She got that thickness, but also a strong, independent woman that don't need no male with great superpowers.
That motorcycle is awesome too.
Also, that motorcycle though, there's a lot to like.
God, you're a freak.
Sean, what's your favorite?
Winston Deaver.
The guy who doesn't even have any superpowers?
Are you serious? Are you serious right now? I kind of baited you into asking me this question. Do you know what his superpower is, son?
Believing in superheroes?
No, money.
Okay.
Batman.
He had the superpower of making superheroes legal again, brah.
Oh, wow. What a take.
He can do whatever he wants. He brought that about. So what if his sister's evil? It doesn't matter. He believes. He has the power of heart, which is a big thing in Captain Planet, but you probably don't know that because you don't have the power of heart.
Anyway, my favorite was the Crusher guy who can crush things with his mind. Mostly for the scene where he crushes the hallway and then Mr. Incredible asks him to uncrush it. And he's just completely confused because no one's ever asked him to uncrush anything before. I just thought that was a great little gag.
I also really like Frozone, if we're talking about it for real character. I never thought that ice would be a really awesome superpower to have, but come on.
And what's not to love about Samuel L. Jackson?
No, he plays a good character. And Frozone always, how he's always moving around. He's always he's like the ice skateboarder.
Yeah, he's like what you wish Silver Surfer was.
Yeah, and he's always there. He's got nice wisdom. He points all the time. Got a good plan. Holds it all together. It'd be cool if they made a Frozone movie. I'd go see that.
That's probably what they would do.
I'm all in for the Frozone spinoff. So this week we have a few little mini pieces of internet garbage. We're going to do a hat trick of small-time internet garbage. We will start with a video that I think anyone on Earth, or at least anyone in the US with a television, can identify with.
When you hire Morgan, it's like bringing in Morgan to a Morgan fight. I'm John Morgan of Morgan and 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 Morgan.
Where's Morgan and Morgan based out of? Is that an Atlanta thing?
I don't know where Morgan and Morgan is based out of, but this video, Morgan and Morgan 3.0, is a bunch of Morgan and Morgan law firm ads cut together so that every time they say Morgan and Morgan, it says Morgan and 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 Morgan. It's just a fun little old school style YouTube poop that I really enjoyed.
This reminds me of another ad that we see on TV. It's for Blake Maislan, the attorney.
That's
a Cincinnati number?
It is.
How do you remember Blake Mason's number? 444-4444. Just hold down 4. You'll get...
Blake will pick up. He says, "Hey guys, how's it going?"
Do they have? See, why isn't their logo like call 444-4444 for Blake?
Seems like a missed opportunity. You're right. And the A in his name isn't a 4. The A that should also be.
Real-time follow-up. It does look like Morgan & Morgan is based in Atlanta.
Nice. Well, you got to go to him.
I mean, if I ever want to get involved in a skeevy class action or injury lawsuit, I'm going to call Morgan & Morgan and Morgan & Morgan and Morgan & Morgan and Morgan & Morgan.
What if they actually buy this as like their next commercial?
I hope they do.
You more likely to use them?
Maybe.
Okay.
I feel like with TV ads, you're like, fuck it, let's just make whatever we want. I feel like at this point, you could just make it, and someone might actually use this ad.
Especially local TV.
Yeah.
So our next video is very short. This video is just called Tell Me More, and I picked this one especially for Sean.
Oh, really?
Aww.
Does he look like a bitch?
Do you want to describe this for us, Sean?
Okay, so you're watching Grease and you're singing along and you're telling yourself, how could they make this better? And the answer is they could put Samuel L. Jackson at the end from Pulp Fiction saying, "Is he a bitch?"
Yeah, and so the line goes, tell me more, does he look like a bitch? It's just another great little piece of editing that I found this week and thought, Sean needs this in his life.
No, I do need this.
And one more. I realize we haven't had a lot of commentary during this internet garbage segment, but sometimes you just need little light clips, just short, fun stuff, and I think this is one of them too. So I'll let Tyler do the honors on this one.
Yeah, so Neil deGrasse Tyson is everyone's favorite scientist or science commentator, and one day he decided to make a little rockety sound. Nyoom, nyoom. Now, folks at home may be thinking, "Hey, that sounds like my favorite sport where I take continuous right turns." So then someone decided to juxtapose that with a little NASCAR racing, and so instead of the or whatever it sounds like, it's just and it's real cute, but also fun.
I don't know, guys. I've just been in a place this week where I've been enjoying these short little, like, almost a little bit longer than Vine length, well-edited little juxtaposition memes of, like, a part of one thing and then a part of another thing, and they've just been really fun.
I think that's actually what you wanted, though, Taylor. You actually really wanted to have Vine back.
Maybe. I mean, this all feels like it could just be on Vine.
You want our son to come home.
If only. If only. If anyone has seen Vine, please let him know that we're looking for him. All right, now it's time to round out the podcast like we always do with a round of shameless plugs. We'll start with Tyler Reed. Tyler, if they want to tell you more, where can they do that?
Hey, everyone. You can find my design and illustration work at tylerdreed.com, and you can find me on the socials as TDR Design on Instagram and Twitter. Resubbed for Adobe Creative Cloud yesterday, so I'm in the hole, so I better make some money off design this year. Let's go!
Sean, if people would like to open a case with Evans and Evans and Evans and Evans and Evans and Evans and Evans, where can they do that?
I have no idea. I did watch a very funny Bob's Burgers where they had a fake legal letterhead that they were handing out to people. I thought this is probably illegal, but it would be hilarious to do just because I live in a place that's full of lawyers. The law offices of Real Cash Otter, 1-800-444-44445. Not to be confused with Michael Blake. Is that his name?
Close enough.
Close enough. And you can follow me on the socials as at TC Olmsted. You can like and follow the show at Dudes Brunch. If you really like what we do here, you can leave a review on Apple Podcasts or recommend us on Overcast. And we will talk to you all next week on another episode of Dudes Brunch.
Did you ever think about tattooing a home button on your belly button?
No. That's a little
not?
too much even for me.
You could have like an Apple tramp stamp. It'd be hilarious. You could go full iPhone.
You got to be careful with those kind of things, though, because they could change the branding at any time.
Well, there is no home button anymore, so...
Yeah, so checkmate, Sean. You fucking idiot.